Okay, welcome everybody to this intro to guided application. I am Greg Drobny. I've spoken with probably most, if not all of you at some point in the past, either on the phone or on a welcome call or just via email. At any rate, you get to put a face to the name if you haven't already. Joined by me is Kayla Elkin doing all the heavy lifting in the back, and also Roger, your fearless instructor between two worlds, as we're going to call Roger right now, because he's shortly going to be on the other side of the world. Right now, he's in Konus, soon to be Japan bound. Roger, thanks for joining us. And hey, I don't know if you want to jump in real quick and just introduce yourself and say what we've got going on here. I'm going to be here just kind of as support for any questions that anyone has about the logistical side of Code Platoon. I think a lot of you I've already spoken to. So if you have questions for me, I'm going to put my email in the chat, but please feel free to ask questions here, whether it's about funding, whether it's about, getting into Code Platoon, whatever. Roger's going to be the go-to guy for what you're going to be covering in this program, but also he's going to be the subject matter expert on all things technical. So more admin side, please feel free to ask me. Roger, why don't you jump in here and introduce what you've got in store tonight, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much, Greg. I really appreciate the introduction. As Greg mentioned, my name is Roger. I'm going to be the Gaia application instructor, right? A little bit about myself. I am a United States Army veteran. I saved 8 years in the Army as a combat engineer. I am also a graduate from Platoon. So, you know, for every single one of you guys going through this program, I went through Platoon just as well. I am, a product of their work, and I'm here trying to give back to the organization that gave to me. Right. Um, Today is going to be mainly an info session. Right. Um, Got application starts in about 2 weeks, but we want to make sure that we gave you guys the time to be able to to make that face to face connection with who you're going to be working with, and we can talk about how to be successful for day one and onwards. Right, we get a lot of questions in the intro to coding Slack channel. I get DMs about, hey, how can I be successful? What do I need to install? Do I need this? Do I need a new computer? And today we're going to be talking about what exactly you need to be successful, and I can answer any of your questions about the program.
Let me just interrupt really quick and just say Roger mentioned a Slack channel. I just don't want anyone to freak out about that immediately. We have not sent the Slack channel invite to you all yet, but we will. It's set to go out on Thursday, so in 3 days from today. So look out for that, but don't worry about if you're behind if you aren't on our Slack channel yet, because you are not. That's all.
Thanks, Kayla. So, right off the bat, I think just some housekeeping things. If you have questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. Or if you have any immediate pressing questions about anything in general that we've mentioned so far. Oh, looks like I'm frozen up there for a second. If you got any immediate questions, feel free to hit us with them. Otherwise, like I said, Roger's going to be kind of giving an expectations more or less, I think, is how I'm understanding. This is, for the record, this is the first time I think that we've done this particular type of info session. So bear with us as we're kind of trying to do something a little bit different and make sure that everybody has some of their questions answered about intro to coding, about guided application before it starts, before we even get there. So does anybody have any immediate questions, concerns, comments? Hold your movie reviews till later or not, whatever. Anything at all. And please, like I said, feel free to ask questions in the chat if if a question comes to your mind, you're like, hey, what about this? Please feel free to ask it in the chat. If nobody has any questions, so Roger, you mentioned you get a lot of questions. What do I expect? What do I expect at the guided application class? How do I prepare? So let's say I'm a student. I'm coming to you. What should I be working on right now at this point in the game? What should I be working on?
Yeah, that's a great question, Greg. So first and foremost, if you're coming to the Guided Application Program, you've had some interest in coding, right? So more than likely, you've already probably done some kind of research about programming languages, where to start. I hear questions like, do I need to install VS Code? Do I need a brand new laptop? Do I need to go get a Mac to code? And you don't need anything crazy. A regular laptop, whatever laptop you're working with, will work just as fine. The entire curriculum for the Guided Application Program is off of GitHub. You don't need to do any crazy installation. The only thing you're gonna have to do is create a GitHub account. So if you created a Facebook account, Instagram account, if you created your TikTok account, you can create a GitHub account. It's as simple as that. We're going to be talking today through how to actually set up some kind of work environment for you to kind of start coding. And I'm going to show you how we are going to essentially set up that environment for day one. So when day one comes, we don't have questions like, hey, how, where can I run code? Right. So we'll be taking care of that. But right now at this moment, what you guys should be looking at is going to be the curriculum, which if it has not been emailed to you, I will drop the link on the chat for the Guided Application link. What you guys need to do between today and day one is be able to open up this link that will take you to the curriculum and go through lesson 0, which is going to be the pre-course lesson. Right. This pre-course lesson is essentially just an introduction to your staff, as well as basic information about coding. It's going to talk to you about the programming languages. It's going to talk to you about basic stuff like a variable and whatnot, right? The bare foundation of what you need to get started on day one. So when day one comes, we get our introductions out of the way and we hit the ground running, and we're able to get straight into code without having to worry about any issues. Right, as Greg mentioned before, this is the first time we're running this kind of info session. Last time, without this info session, we had a lot of questions like, what is GitHub? Like, how do I open this up? I don't have the link to the repository. Where's the curriculum at? So we're trying to alleviate all these little issues and make sure that we are ready to go on day one.
And this session is being recorded, and all links we share in the chat and the recording of this session will be emailed to all of you tomorrow. So just know you will have a copy to refer back to later if you need to.
Okay, so we got our first question, Roger. We got our first question in the comments. It says, is this essentially a follow-up to the Intro to Coding courses?
That's a great question, right? So if you've been through Platoon's website, you probably encounter like the self-paced Intro to Coding course, which is on Teachable. You probably even looked at Platoon's YouTube channel, seen previous Intro to Coding courses, maybe the previous Guided Application Program course as well. It is not a follow-up, right? What I do highly recommend, and I'm glad you asked this question, right? One of the things that I do recommend is go through the self-paced Intro to Coding course that Platoon offers, right? It would make the next 3 weeks throughout the Guided Application Program so much easier, right? So when we're actually going through the Guided Application Program and you're learning about variables, learning about for loops, it's not the first time you see it, right? Coding is not something that you can just kind of sit there and watch a video and be like, hey, you know what, I got it, right? It's one of those things that you have to be behind the keyboard, kind of put in the time to be able to understand the skills. So it is not a follow-up to the Intro to Coding course. They share a very, very similar curriculum. There are currently right now different languages. The self-paced Intro to Coding course right now is in JavaScript, while the Guided application is in Python. Although they're different languages, they're the same skills. I still recommend you go through the self-paced Intro to Coding course, right? It's great practice. You're gonna have to learn both languages throughout the course anyways. So whether you come in learning JavaScript, whether you come in learning Python, you're going to be expected and to learn both of these. So it does not hurt to go through both courses. Does that answer your question, Kaylee? I see Keegan. Was that course fixed? I remember there being issues with practice problems not showing up on Replit. So the issues with the Replit problem, right? We got a lot of feedback on the Intro to Coding Slack channel, if you're part of that, about these Replit challenges. So when the Replit challenges were created, we essentially created a PDF document that had the links to all 50 of these Intro to Coding questions, right? Challenges or exercises. We use Replit as a platform to be able to host these and provide you guys an environment to run these challenges. Unfortunately, throughout the last couple months, Replit changed their business model, right? It used to be free. We could host as many coding challenges as we wanted to. You guys can go there, make your own account, and then go through every single one of them. Because of the business model change, unfortunately, we lost the 50 questions that we were posting on Replit. So we now get a 404 error when you visit these links. Now, just because these coding exercises, challenges that you guys are trying to open up do not work does not mean you won't be successful in coding, right? Those were additional exercises just for you guys, right? To make sure you guys get some more time behind the computer to be able to practice your coding skills. We can talk about some additional resources if you want some more exercises and training to practice what you're learning. We can talk about LeetCode, Code Wars, other resources we can use. But don't feel that if you weren't able to complete those questions that were on that PDF document, that you won't be successful. There were additional resources, but they weren't mandatory. They weren't essentially part of the course. They were more of an addition, like an add-on, right? Just for the sake of repetition. Does that answer your question, Keegan? Awesome.
So I'm going to ask you, if nobody else asks questions, I'm going to ask general questions that maybe convey some of the things that I hear. So you mentioned different languages, Roger. Let's say I've been learning JavaScript. We need to jump into Python or vice versa. I've been learning Python. I need to jump into JavaScript. How close is that? Am I going to be totally lost? What do I do?
You would not be totally lost. Thank you for asking that question, Greg. Coding languages are essentially, as the name says, a language, right? So the same way that you and I are communicating, Greg, right? We're talking English. That's how we communicate. That's how we communicate with computers, right? The difference between JavaScript and Python. What's the difference? Well, compare it to English and Spanish, right? If I told you carro in Spanish, which is car, they're very similar. And you can kind of almost use some context clues and assume that car and carro, the way they're spelled, they're fairly similar. They share a lot of similarities. So if you come in learning JavaScript or you come in learning Python and you feel a little intimidated because you don't know the other one that's being taught, that should not be a reason to feel like you won't be successful. You will not have that big of an issue. What I like to do as well throughout the program is, if you came in learning JavaScript and the guided application program is in Python, I will give you the alternatives of how the code is written in JavaScript. I would teach you like, hey, this is how we're doing it in Python for my JavaScript peeps. This is how we do it in JavaScript. Fairly similar. And then if anything, it gives you a different point of view as well. Like, okay, I understand it. I saw it written in JavaScript. I'm seeing it written in Python. It clicks a little bit better. So if you feel a little intimidated because you don't know Python, you came to learn JavaScript, that shouldn't be an issue. On top of that, as I mentioned before, our programs, for the most part, they're oriented around full stack software development, right? So front end and back end, right? We use different languages for different parts of our frameworks. Python is going to be used for our back end, where we use JavaScript for our front end. Both these languages are going to be needed to, for our program, for you to be successful. You're going to have to learn JavaScript. You're going to have to learn Python, right? When I came in, I only knew Python. I didn't know JavaScript, right? So I took the intro to coding course. But throughout the course, if you guys, get accepted to Platoon, you guys become students. You're gonna be changing between JavaScript, Python, back and forth, back and forth. You're never gonna feel super confident. I'm telling you right now, imposter syndrome is real. You're never gonna be like a subject matter expert on just one little language. It's gonna be moments where you're going to mix up the syntax, right? The grammar of the language, and be like, oh man, I've been typing JavaScript, but I've been meaning to type in Python. I've been doing it wrong. I'm gonna go ahead and fix that. It happens, right, when we first start off, and that's okay. But you're going to be expected to learn both of them. So don't be afraid of it. It's part of the journey. It's fun. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Greg?
Yeah, I just figured that might be a question that's on a lot of people's minds, so I figured I'd offer it up. Again, people feel free to ask more questions, but I'm just trying to offer questions that I think a lot of people have at this point in the game. So let's go a little bit further with that. So let's say that I come to this program, this guided application, and I'm like, what is the most common thing that you see people struggling with on day 1 and 2? When people come to guided application class, what is the most common thing that you say, hey, if you could just prepare for this thing, it will set you up for success?
I'm gonna say personally, Greg, I'm gonna say expectation management, right? Expectation management is a big thing, right? We come in here thinking like, oh, anyone can code, which it's true. I feel like anybody can code, but we fail to realize that there is hours that need to be put behind the coding and stuff. So just make sure you're ready. Like, when we come to class, like you are behind a keyboard and you're coding along. It's possible to show up and not code along and still be successful, but you want to put in the time behind your keyboard, code along the exercises, try them out after the class, do it some time on your own. Um, expect to be putting some hours behind your computer, right? So I want to say expectation management. I feel like we think like, oh, I just need these classes, and the time between that Roger's teaching and when he's not teaching, that's all I need. Uh, I think some extra hours after class is going to go a long way.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Kaylee asks the question, is it safe to assume that the main reason why we're learning both is because while most companies only use one of them, different companies use different language, like company A uses Java and company B uses Python, so on and so forth. So I know how I'd answer that, but I'll let you take it first. Your thoughts, Roger?
Yeah. This is how I like to think of it, right? For my military cats, right there. Think back to our standard operating procedures, right? There's a way that we do things per doctrine, right? How we have it. Hey, this is how you run battle drills, whatever, right? But then your unit, your company, your specific organization, they might tweak it a bit, or they do things a little bit different that works for them. That's fairly similar with these languages. A lot of these languages they share similarities, but some are better than others for other reasons. Your company might just like a specific language, right? Or hey, this is the framework that we like to use. This is how we started. This is what we used when we started off, and we've used it ever since. Um, JavaScript is built, I think, consists of like 90% of our websites out there, right? So JavaScript itself it's heavily used throughout the entire internet, right? Which is why it's one of the languages that we use. The stuff that we use with God application, the full stack immersive programs, the DevOps programs, we're using relevant technologies, right? Not to say that Java isn't relevant, right? But each language, each framework has its purpose in place. We're teaching what's the most relevant, what we feel that our students who are graduating and going out to the workforce, they're seeing like, hey, this is what we be using in our companies. Hey, we're using this. I've been seeing a lot of this. We take that feedback, we bring it back to our programs, and we adjust, right, and we grow with the industry as well. So, um, the main reason why we use what we use is because this is what we see the trend in the industry as well. What's common, and what works for us as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think Roger answered that perfectly because, and I would add simply that this is a great way to look at more of the big picture view of what Code Platoon is and why we exist, which is that we exist to launch careers. That's one of the reasons coding boot camps became a thing in the first place, is to address the needs, the immediate needs of the tech industry, right? It's not theoretical knowledge that's going to benefit you 10 years down the road. It's what's relevant right now, like Roger said. If you Google most in-demand coding languages, everybody's going to have a slightly different list and they're going to be ordered a little bit differently, but JavaScript and Python are always in the top five. They're always top five in-demand coding languages. So we want our students to be most set up for success, like what he's saying, with what's most relevant in the industry today. To put it, I heard a programmer a while back. I was listening to an interview. I didn't realize YouTube is entirely Python. YouTube is built entirely on the language of Python. So it's obviously a very highly in demand language because one of the biggest websites in the world is based entirely on Python. So it's built, like Code Platoon is, it's built to serve the student in the most relevant, immediately employable way possible. So hopefully that answers the question. So Roger, for people who are brand new to this, who haven't done really much of anything, is that the best place to start? Is to pick one of those or to pick both of them at the same time? What do you recommend there for somebody who's brand new to this? They've never done either. Should they spend Mondays on Python and Tuesdays on JavaScript, or focus only on one and then go to the other later on?
If I had to do it all over again, I would do the exact same way, which is focus on one first. I got really good at Python, Greg. I got scared really good at Python. I personally, this is my personal, journey. I had 6 months of self-taught, right? I went through and I got every book about Python, and I hit the book hard with Python. And then I came to Platoon, to the application, and it's a JavaScript, the intro coding. I was like, oh man, did I just waste 6 months of my life? Like, what am I doing? Right. So I started learning JavaScript, right? But because I got really, comfortable with one, I saw the similarities in the new language, right? I saw, okay, this is very similar to how we do it in Python. Just, a little tweaking here and there, maybe a different word. For example, like a boolean, a true or false. The way that you write it in Python and the way you write it in JavaScript, it's as simple as a capitalization, right? Just capitalizing true or capitalizing false. It's a difference between the Python and JavaScript. Very, very small like differences. They share so many similarities. So it's fairly easy. So I would say I would pick one. If you're sitting in this room right now, I will focus on Python, right? If you already started and you already learned JavaScript, that's okay. Continue learning some JavaScript. Once the Got application program starts, you can focus on Python for the duration of that time, right? But if you have not started and you are sitting in this call, I would just stick to Python. That's what we're going to learn the next 3 weeks anyway. So I will learn some Python. Make sense?
Great answer. Great answer. So we've got a question from Norma. How often will you host office hours during the course?
Could you rephrase that, Norma? What do you mean office hours? We are remote. This is a remote course. I will be teaching this from Japan. So I'm not quite sure. Do you mean like how often will I be available to you guys?
That's what I interpreted it as. Yeah, like, will you be available for questions and extra assistance during the course, and when, if so?
Awesome. Thank you for kind of making me understand, Kayla. I appreciate that. So day one, I'll be like at the end of my Japan trip. But besides that, for the entire of the course, for 95% of the course, I will be pretty much available anytime. I am a disabled veteran who stays at home. My wife hates me because she has to go to work and I get to sleep in. But I'm typically available. I'm right here in my computer. Normal, I believe we spoke via email, Slack. You probably saw, some late, replies because I was up at 3 a.m. because I slept all day, and that's okay. So I will be available. If you guys reach out, I will get back to you guys. Sometimes I might reach back within a minute. Sometimes within the next hour, I might be with my wife or something, but I'm not restricted within any time frame. If you guys need help, I get the Slack notifications to my phone. I'll tell my wife, hey, I gotta step out real quick. I'll go to my computer and I'll reply. Um, Last session, I had some students who needed some additional help, right? Outside of work hours, I held one-on-one sessions. And we met up and I made sure that I gave my undivided attention for an hour to the students that signed up for these sessions. And I answered their questions. I reviewed material that was already covered like 2 weeks ago. And that was okay. So I'm usually very available for you guys. If you guys ask for it, I will deliver. So there I like to think there's no excuse because I am here. I offer myself throughout the week, even outside of work hours and in the weekends. If you guys want the help, I'm here for it. I love it. I joined the military because I wanted to be a part of something bigger, and in Platoon, I get to give back to you guys. So just ask, and I will deliver. Does that answer your question, Norma?
Hero.
Awesome. Thank you, Roger. Just to reiterate one more time, since I know a couple new folks have joined since we started, on Thursday, you're going to get an email with the link to join our Slack channel, and that's going to be kind of the best way to connect both with Roger and with other students of the guided application outside of class hours. So definitely make sure you accept that invite once it goes out. And yeah, as Roger said, we can't like read your minds on if you need help, but Roger is a fantastic resource and I've personally seen him really go out of his way to provide the help needed. So definitely make sure if you need any help during the program that you're proactive in reaching out to Roger for that help, and he will give it to you.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you both. And we're going to be going back to an earlier topic. We're going to be sharing some Python resources in the comments as well. I've got a free course that was Roger. I don't know if you were the one who vetted this. Maybe it was Adam. Anyway, one of our instructors it's a Scrimba free Python course. I just shared it in the comment section. It's a self-paced Python course that will allow you to do more practice challenges and things like that. I sent it out to a lot of people I speak with. So that's a great resource for learning more Python. There's a lot of options out there. That's a good and simple, straightforward one as well. Any questions anybody has immediately coming to mind? Anything that they want to know that they don't already know about Code Platoon, about what to expect?
So
Kayla, am I
I'll
missing
actually
any
ask one
questions?
just to make sure we cover any
Yeah.
confusion that might pop up since we shared that other Python course. How much Python knowledge do folks need on day one, Roger? Like, what do you say there?
Absolutely nothing. As of right now, as the way the curriculum is structured, I'm teaching you from the ground up, right? So I will tell you exactly what is a variable is, the different types of data types. I, I've received students before who have already been through some kind of like self-paced course and they're like, oh, this is too easy for me. And they ended up like not needing it, which is fine. So complete transparency. Right now, the way the curriculum is structured, I am teaching you from the ground up. So you don't need to know anything. But once again, I highly, highly, highly encourage. If you guys can see right now, I'm like stomping my feet. Highly encourage, check it out before guided application starts, right? You want to put the miles behind your keyboard. If you think just those, I think in total from the 9 classes that are taught, I think it's like 27 hours is enough for you to be from zero to hero. I don't think so. I think you're gonna need a little bit more help. So make sure you guys are putting the hours outside of class ahead of time. If you guys can start now, by all means, start looking at the curriculum, kind of get a better understanding of it. So when we talk about it, it clicks easier, right? So you spend less time trying to wrap your head around it throughout class. and then when I'm actually teaching it clicks a little bit better. Maybe I can explain it in a different manner. So you don't need to know anything coming day one. I highly encourage you to look ahead of it though, but you don't need anything. Does that answer your question, Kayla?
Absolutely. I'm not a coding instructor myself, but I've heard the coding instructors at Code Platoon describe coding as like learning a foreign language, which I think is a really good way of thinking about it, where like immersion is so helpful when you're learning and, taking the time on it. I did reshare the guided application curriculum link in the chat for anyone who joined a little late and missed the first message. Roger has put together kind of an introductory module in that GitHub curriculum link that here, I'll let you explain it, Roger. Go ahead. You'll explain it better than me.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up, Kayla. So I kind of want to see if we can kind of wrap this up. If anybody else has any more questions for Greg and Kayla before we move on to the more of a technical side where I start sharing my screen and going through the curriculum and setting up a code space environment. Does anybody have any questions for Kayla or Greg before we shift our focus?
And I'm going to share my email in the chat once more, just so everybody should probably have it, but just in case, please email me if you have any questions about, anything on the more administrative side. We're happy to help. But yeah, otherwise, more technical stuff, my hat is off to Roger. And
Awesome. I'll
All
just reiterate that this is being recorded. So if you're not prepared to like get into setting up the system tonight, that's totally okay. We'll send this recording out tomorrow and you can follow along then. And of course, Roger is available to help.
awesome. Yeah, so just like Kayla mentioned, she shared the link to the GitHub. I'm gonna go ahead and start sharing my screen, guys. All right. We should all be looking at what is the Gaia application curriculum. I am in my parents' house, so I don't have my usual screens. So I'm sorry if I have to kind of go back and forth. Ignore my desktop icons. But here's what GitHub looks like, what the curriculum is going to look like. I'm already signed in. Maybe I can. Well, you should be able to go to a GitHub link. Just go to github.com or go to Google and type in github.com. It should bring you somewhere like this. The icon for GitHub looks like this cat right here. What you guys are going to do is going to create an account, right? I don't want to log out and have to go through the whole process right now. It's as simple as creating a Facebook account, right? Or Instagram if you guys have social media. LinkedIn, you guys can make a GitHub, right? Once you guys create your GitHub account, what you guys are going to do is you're going to go to the top left of your GitHub profile, and you're going to click the three bars on the top left, and you should see different options here. What we are going to be doing in our class and utilizing in our class is going to be code spaces, right? Code spaces is what we are going to use to generate some kind of environment for all of us to be able to write some code. People ask, Roger, do I need to install VS Code? Do I need to download Python? You do not need to do anything except create a GitHub account, right? We're going to click Code Spaces, and what's going to do is going to bring you to this part of the website where it's going to prompt you with some templates, right? And this might look a little foreign to you, especially if you're new to coding stuff, like what is React, Jupyter Notebooks, and this stuff. I want you to think of this as kind of like creating a Word document, right? So whenever you open up Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, Excel, and you create a new document, sometimes you can see like, here's a template that you can use. That's essentially what this is. We can create a template of our code space. And I want you guys to click on the blank section, and we're going to use a blank template. What Codespace does, it creates pretty much a simulated VS Code application, right? And VS Code, what that is essentially an editor where we can create files, coding files, and run these files to, create code. So without having to download and install anything, we can just create some kind of environment like this on our browser. Think of, Google Docs, right? It's very similar to the, Word document. When you open up Word on your computer, you can open up a Word document using Google Docs, right? That's essentially what we're doing here. We're creating an instance of VS Code on our browser. And VS Code is essentially just an application very, very similar to how like Word is, where we can write code and then run it, right? And we're going to use this as a way to minimize anybody having to download anything, install stuff on their computer that might be a little too confusing for you guys. We're going to keep it plain simple. Create a GitHub account and create a Codespace environment. You should be prompted with something very similar to this, right? Now, one thing I want to point out, on one tab, I have my Codespace that I just created. On another tab, I have the guided application curriculum that I opened up when I clicked that link that Kayla sent, right? This is how it looks like. This is the raw repository. You're probably wondering, Roger, what does repository mean? Essentially, it's just a folder. This is the folder of where the curriculum is currently living in, where we can access it, right? This is just like a directory of our folders. And we're going to need this so we can open it up in our Codespace, which is why I have both of these tabs open. I have my new Codespace and I have the curriculum in a different tab. Now, let's go ahead and go back to our Codespace. What I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set it up. You're going to be prompted with some customization options here. This is not necessary. You can just scroll all the way to the bottom in this section right here and click Mark Done. Or if you like, you can continue and customize your VS Code to whatever, floats your goat, right? I'm just going to go ahead and click Mark Done. And it'll bring me to this window right here where it's just like, do I want to open up a new file, open up an existing file, or the option that we are going to use, which is clone a Git repository, right? What this is saying is, hey, I want to copy an existing repository and bring it into this Codespace. And this is why we have the curriculum opened up in a different tab. What we are going to do is we're going to open this bad boy up inside of our Codespace so we can start working with these files. So how do we do that, Roger? Well, we're going to navigate to the tab of where our curriculum is located at. And you're going to find that there is a big green button, you can't miss it, that says Code. You're going to click this button. It's going to have a drop down. And what I want you to do is I want you to click these two squares, which is essentially copying the URL so we can paste it somewhere, right? Either that or just copy and paste a link. But it's easier if you just click copy URL to clipboard. That's going to allow us to copy the URL that is linked to this curriculum. Now, with that copied, we're going to move back to our Codespace. We're going to click on Clone Git Repository. And you see here that it's going to open up this search bar at the very top, right? It says provide repository URL or pick a repository source. Well, we already have the URL, so all I have to do is either paste it or press Control V, which would essentially just paste it. And here is my URL. And we see here that it now prompts me with the option to clone from a URL, and then it recites back to me the URL that I pasted in here. All I'm going to do is press enter. After I press enter once, it's going to tell me to choose a folder to clone it into. So when I created this Codespace, it by default generated a bunch of folders in this session, right? It's not important. I don't need you to focus on any of these. None of these really matter. Just know that there's other folders in here that were by default added into your Codespace. This does not matter. All you have to do here is just press enter. It's going to copy the curriculum in this file path where it says /home/Codespace. It'll clone or essentially copy your repository into this section in your Codespace. So all you do is press enter. It's going to go ahead and clone it. And it's going to ask you if you want to open up the clone repository. And we're going to say yes, open. We see here that it's going to set up my Codespace. It's going to take some time. If it's the first time you ever do this, it might take a minute. That's okay. But after it loads up, we see here that my Codespace now repopulated with the copy of the curriculum to the guided application. I now have a copy of the entire curriculum, right? On the left side, to kind of give you a general idea of what we're looking at here, on the left side, we have our directory, right? Where we can look at all the folders that we have and all the files that we have within here, right? We have an exercises directory, which you don't have to worry about later. We will get to these as we go through the course. We have graphics, which you can just ignore. This is for the images that are added into the curriculum. What you need to worry about, the only thing that you care about right now, is going to be the lessons directory, the file that says 0-free course. This is the file that I would like for you guys to read over before day one, right? This is going to have a table of content. I can zoom out a little bit. I'm very zoomed in for the sake of for you guys. But essentially, this is your syllabus, right? This is going to have the introduction to the team, who I am. You see Greg here, some other staff. It's going to show you some tools that you can use. We have Slack, VS Code. You don't need to install it. We're using Codespaces. It talks about Jupyter notebooks. It's going to show you a little bit about GitHub Codespaces, what we're using right now. It's going to talk about programming concepts, the languages, Python, some very basic stuff. Enough for you guys to have some idea of what we're talking about when day one comes. Now, just to make sure that our Codespace is configured and ready to go, what we are going to do is I want you to click on the lesson 1, which is Python data type methods. We're going to run a piece of code in here to make sure that it's running correctly. We're going to scroll down and we're going to get to the first code block example here. Don't worry about what this code block is saying. The only thing we're going to do is we're going to run this to make sure it's running, right? And to run this, what we can do is we can press the play button right here, and it's going to run the code in here. And you're going to see that you're going to be prompted with some options. It's going to say install/enable the suggested extensions. Now, what does this mean? Well, just like you guys asked, like, Roger, do I need to download Python? Do I need to download VS Code? Well, VS Code needs a way for it to talk as if it's talking to a Python code, right? Well, by default, VS Code doesn't know how to do that. So it uses extensions. Think of add-ons, like your extensions on your browser. You might have some extensions for like, an ad blocker, right? You might have extensions for music on your browser. I don't know if people still do that nowadays. That's essentially what we're going to do here in our Codespace. We want to install the extensions we need to run code, right? So all you're going to do is click on this right here, which is going to install the needed extensions that you need to run this code block. You press that, and you see here that it's going to go through the installation. You see installing Jupyter extension, installing Python. It's going to do this by default the moment you click that button. Right. Once this done, you're going to see that's going to run the code. Well, let's go ahead and give it a second. There we go. All right. We see here that I got a response. This says incorrect, which is what we expected. We see here that the code is running. These are all examples. It's talking to our Python kernel. with the extensions that we installed. We are able to successfully run the code sections in here. And you don't need to know what any of this is right now. All we need to know is that make sure that something is running, right? That it's printing something out. That's what's important here. In the event you do not get anything installed here, right? It does not install the Python extension, or if it doesn't install the Jupyter extension, you can manually install them yourself. On the left side, we have our navigation bar, and we have what looks like some Tetris blocks, which is extensions. You're going to click on this, and it's going to open up what seems to be like a library of different extensions that we can install. We already see here that we have some installed, which is Python and Jupyter notebooks. These already got installed for us, but we can install other stuff here. Let's see if I can look up, I think Node for JavaScript. If you're familiar with JavaScript, I think there's Node stuff. This is what runs JavaScript. We have, let's see, you can change the color of your VS Code. There's different extensions here that you can look for. But essentially, if you couldn't install the extension for Python and JavaScript the way that I showed you before, all you have to do is type in Python, and you'll be prompted with different extensions. Usually, it's easier if you just install the one with the most downloads. That tends to be the correct one. There's different versions that other people make here, and they put on the marketplace themselves. Usually, the one that has the most download, it's by the default one, the authentic one, the original. So if it doesn't install Python or Jupyter, you want to look it up here on the left side and just install it yourself, right? You can click it and you will put install. Right now it says uninstall because it installed it for me. But yeah, so this is how you would do it manually. Now, we talked about how do you run the curriculum, but what if I don't want to run the curriculum? What if I just want to run basic Python code, Roger? How do I do that? How do I run a Python file? Well, the same way that we copy the curriculum in here, we can create other directories in here as well. We're not just limited to that curriculum that we copied here. We can create other directories, other folders, other files. We just come here into this box right here. You can create a new file or a new folder. I recommend you create a new folder just so you can keep everything compartmentalized. And you can name it Python code examples, whatever you want to name it, right? Whatever makes your heart happy. We can create a directory here. And then this is where I can add all like my Python files that I want to create and run code in. Here, after I create that directory, I'm going to add a new file into this directory, and I can say example1.py. Right? I'm creating a Python file. Notice that I gave the file a name, and then I added the .py at the end of it to let my computer know, hey, this is a Python file, right? This includes Python code, right? It is not a text document. It's not a Word document. It is a Python document, right? So you have to end it with the .py. So we press enter. It creates that Python file. And look, it opened it up for me. It's a blank Python file. But I can write raw Python code here, right? I can go ahead and do print hello and press the run Python file button. And we see here at the very bottom, it runs my file, and we see in the console that it prints out hello. Right, this is a terminal or like your console. This is where you can see the output of what your code is doing. You can also do a lot of stuff here. This is the same as your terminal, right, that you have on your computer. That black box that opens up that scares you because you feel like you might break your computer if you type something into it, right? This is the same as this. Right, here's your terminal. So we can do print hello. We can say hello, got it, application, students. We can run this, right? And we see here, hello, got it, application, students gets printed out. So not only can we copy the curriculum for Got It application and run it here, as we go through our course, but we can also just open up a Python file and create Python code and run it, right? So I don't know what you guys have been using up to this point. For those of you who have been coding, if you've been using Replit, if you've been using some kind of text editor, some IDE somewhere, you might have paid for something. I've heard of people doing that. You do not have to pay for anything. You can do that here, right? So everything that we do for a course is going to be done through GitHub. You're going to create a GitHub account. You're going to create a Codespace, copy the curriculum into your Codespace, and then just read the pre-course before day one. That's all you need to do. This is the basic setup that you need to be successful on day one of our course. Well, Roger, what happens if I'm done coding, right? I finished coding. I've been coding all day. I'm tired. We just finished the session. I go ahead and I close up my Codespace. What then? What happens, Roger? Does that disappear? No. If you go back to your Codespace window, you can see here, I'm just going to go ahead and refresh it. I have something new here. It says owned by, and here's my GitHub username. And what it shows here is that it's a Codespace. It by default gave it a weird name called Fuzzy Happiness. I don't know why it gives it these names, guys. Don't ask me. It randomly generates something here as a name for this Codespace. But I'm able to click on this Codespace, and it's going to go ahead and open up my previous session back to where I left off, right? So you can copy the curriculum to your GitHub Codespace. You can work on it, close it up, and come back to it 2 days later, 3 days later, a week later, and continue from where you left off. Roger, am I just limited to one Codespace? No, I believe you can create 3 sessions. So if you want to have one for God application, you want to have one that's completely different for something else, you definitely can do that. Let's say you just want one Codespace that's nothing but just Python files. You don't want anything involving the curriculum. You just need somewhere to write code as you guys are individually learning. You can go ahead and create a new Codespace. Scroll down to the bottom. Once again, click Mark Done. We're going to say new file. And I'm going to say, example1.py. Right? I create a new file. It's going to tell me where do I want to create this file at. I just press enter. It creates it in the current location where I'm defaulted in when I open up my Codespace. We see here that the file populates on the Explorer side here on the left side. Here's my file. I can say print. This is my new Python file. And you might see something weird here. What's going on? I don't have a run button, Roger. This looks different than what the code looked like on your other one. Here it looks a different color, while here it's all blue. But we see here that I got a notification. It says, do you want to install the recommended Python extension? I'm going to go ahead and click install. Well, Roger, I thought you already installed Python. I did in my other Codespace session. But notice that I created a whole different other session somewhere else. So it does not track what other sessions are tracking. This is its own individual little sandbox that I created. So I have to reinstall extensions that I want to use. These two are not the same. These are 2 different sessions. One's holding my curriculum. One's holding just my Python files. I went ahead and I installed it. Then I can go ahead and press the run button and notice here that it runs my code here, right? So I can have 2 different sessions, one specifically for my curriculum, and I can have one just for all my Python files. I can go ahead and create a new one, example2.py, right? You can create as many files as you want. So you can have 2 different code spaces, one for the curriculum, one for your work or for your essentially your scratch sheet, your notepad where you can try out code. But Codespace is going to be the tool that we are going to utilize throughout the entirety of our course. You do not have to install anything. You do not have to buy anything. All you need to do is create a GitHub account and set up a Codespace. It's as simple as this. Now, I know I've been rambling on a lot. I just want to make sure that I got through the entire explanation while we were recording and while everyone's here. Do I have any other questions? Or do I have any questions to begin with?
Roger, I don't know if it's a question, but there is a comment in the comments here you might want to read just so you're tracking on that.
I see Kaylee here. I wonder if it gives weird names by default because it's easier to pick out. I'm not quite sure. I think it just generates something there, so it knows how to call things or how to identify them. Um, it'll be weird to just give it a weird, code like 347ABF. But it probably just gives it a name so it has a way to refer to it. Not too important here. Do I have any questions about the setup, about GitHub, Codespaces, anything of that nature? Please ask away. I'm here for you guys. If you have any questions, maybe something was confusing, um, don't hesitate to ask. I don't believe there's any dumb questions. Okay. All right. Well, to summarize, I see here Mo asks, how soon will the recording be sent out after the meeting? I'm not quite sure. That's a Kayla question.
I will process the video right after we're done here, and I'll post it to the YouTube tonight. I probably won't send the email out until tomorrow, but if you want to find it as soon as tonight, go find Code Platoon on YouTube. You'll be able to get it there.
Awesome. Thank you, Caleb. Yeah, guys. So just to reiterate, all you need is a GitHub account, right? So make sure you guys copy this, guide application, GitHub link, have it there so you can open it up later. That's all you really need. Codespaces is not something that we made up. You can YouTube like how to use GitHub Codespaces, right? It's something like how to use Facebook, right? It's literally just a part of the website. It's a new feature they added recently. I think is it awesome. It keeps you guys from downloading a bunch of stuff that you don't know what it is. Installing a bunch of junk. It keeps people from buying stuff. As I mentioned to you guys before, people paid for the paid version of Replit. Don't do that. GitHub is all you need. You can create a free environment for you to write code. If you've already installed VS Code and installed Python, that's fine too. You don't need to, so don't feel like you're forced to do that. All you really need for now is GitHub, right? If you guys, which I hope every one of you guys do, completes part 2 of your application and you move forward with this, we will go through an install phase, and the next part of your journey will be actually installing everything you need to install. There's a process for that. We have instructors to help you do that as well and to troubleshoot that process. You do not need to install anything right now. All you really need is a GitHub account. And it's also helpful because that's what we're going to use for the actual programs, right? So I'm not going to say if, when you guys make it to part 2 of your application and you get accepted into the program, right, you're going to use GitHub as well, right? GitHub it's a standard amongst the industry. Everyone knows what GitHub is. When you apply to software engineering jobs, you typically add your GitHub username so they can look at your GitHub profile, right? So it's standard. So it's helpful to start looking at it now, using it, and start adding some hours onto it. So you can kind of start building your presence, which is pretty cool. I see here Kaylee has an admin question.
Quick question.
Awesome. Let's do Kevin's first since he says there's a thunderstorm that might take out his internet, and then we'll return to Kaylee's. If you guys don't mind. I just want to make sure that gets answered.
Yeah. So Kevin's question, which one you'll be able to apply for? Any of them. As long as you're ahead of the deadline, you can apply to any cohort. You can apply as far out as you want with any Code Platoon cohort. So if you go through this guided application course, we're helping you to apply to any of the Code Platoon cohorts. Obviously, you need to figure out which one works with your schedule. But yeah, it isn't different for different cohorts. When will that deadline be after the course? Um, each cohort is going to have its respective deadline, right? So make sure that you're tracking that on the website. But in terms of this upcoming one, the Avenger Platoon, what is the actual drop dead date for that? Kayla, do you know?
Avenger Platoon, technically the deadline is before this course, but we are letting folks who complete this course and then complete their application during the course enroll in Avenger Platoon. So that one will be the soonest offering, and that one's first day of the program is June 2nd.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to intervene real quick and just
Yeah.
add on to what Kayla said. For those of you who decided to jump on that, the opportunity that Kayla just mentioned, if you want to be successful and make sure you get into this immediate course coming up, Adventure Platoon, after with the extension, you need to take it seriously. Right? You should be coding like tomorrow, right? Uh, to make sure you guys are as successful as possible. Uh, because you want to have the miles underneath you, with coding, right? Especially because the other people who've already applied to Adventure Platoon have probably been coding for a couple months now. We here we're probably a little bit more behind, so you should be coding like tomorrow, maybe even yesterday, and you can increase the odds of you being more successful and being accepted into the program.
How long after the application process do we find out if we've been accepted into the program? We accept on a rolling basis, so usually it's very soon, like within a day or two. If we get a lot of applications all at once, say right after the end of the program, it might be a few days, but you'll know quickly. And
Guillermo,
then we
typically
skipped
that's people.
Kaylee. Make sure
Go
we'll
ahead.
get back to the Kaylee's admin question.
She just asked the question, when do we discuss about scholarships and program costs? I know it would be closer to the start of the class, but I was wondering about some kind of time estimate. I applied for the June course. So, bottom line on that, Code Platoon, like part of our mission is to make sure that cost is not a prohibitive factor for attendance. So, once you're accepted, we make the scholarship application to Code Platoon extremely easy. And when I say extremely easy, I can't overemphasize that enough. It's a simple form you fill out, and we get you the best possible scholarship based on what you filled out on that form. This is not like a university where you have to write a 10,000 word essay and hope for $500. That's not what we do here. So our scholarships run between 80 and 100% of the tuition covered. You can look on our scholarship page for the eligibility form. That will let you know what you're eligible for. But after you're accepted, you will be connected with Tish, our enrollment specialist. She's gonna Kayla just dropped that in the chat, the scholarship eligibility form. Tish is gonna walk you through the whole process once you're accepted of how to make sure that you've got the funding questions squared away. And that also goes for VA, like if you're using a VA method, whether that's VRNE, GI Bill, whatever is on the table, we're going to work with you to make sure that we're doing something that is feasible and works best for you and your situation. So yeah, and I should emphasize this just in case anybody is unclear. The application process has nothing to do with your funding method. So don't worry about having that question answered before going through this application process. I say that because we have had people in the past that said, well, I wasn't sure about funding. Go through the application process. It has no bearing. The funding question has no bearing on application or vice versa. Like we're not going to give a scholarship until you're accepted, but at the same time, we want you to go through the application process, not worrying about that component. We're going to make that as easy as possible. I've been at Code Platoon over 5 years. I've never seen a single person not come to Code Platoon because of money. It's never been the issue why people they didn't come because they didn't want to do it. They didn't come because they just timing didn't work out, any number of other factors. I've never seen funding be the issue why people did not come to Code Platoon. It's not happened in the 5 years I've been here.
I can attest that too. I was a scholarship recipient for Code Platoon as well. So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
100%.
So just know on your first day of class, you will meet our enrollment coordinator. I think that's her title, Tish. And so you'll get her contact information on day one of class, and you'll be able to talk to her individually after that if you need any further clarification on your particular situation and any funding concerns there. Did we catch up to the questions? I think we did.
I think so.
Awesome. Anything else, or else I will let everyone go and enjoy the rest of their evening. But we're here to help, so ask away if there is anything.
I gotta finish with my closing statement. What you put in is what you get out of it. That's the best thing I can say about it, right? When I came through this program, because as I mentioned to you guys, I was a graduate from Uniform Platoon. I was in the process of transitioning out of the service, and my biggest thing was like, how am I going to bring bread to the table, right? I have a newborn, right? I am leaving the service. There is a lot of like uncertainty. How am I going to provide for my family, right? And that was my biggest motivator, right? My biggest motivator. So, every day that I opened up my laptop, I worked like this is what my future depends on, right? How my family eats is gonna depend on how much work I put in today. And that's I'm not saying you guys have to live like that, but whatever is your motivation, right? Find it. However much work you put in is however you're gonna get how much you're gonna get out of it. Every single one of you guys can be successful here. And I look forward to working with every single one of y'all.
Awesome. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your evening. Keep an eye out for the upcoming communications from us.
Thanks, everybody.